The Conservative backbencher Jacob Rees-Mogg was today forced to distance himself from a political campaign group whose dinner he addressed in May. A posting on the Traditional Britain Facebook page after the dinner opined that Doreen Lawrence, who had recently been awarded a peerage, should, along with millions of others, be requested to return to their natural homelands. Jacob Rees-Mogg said he was shocked and disassociated himself with the group. But did the MP know the tenor of the organisation he was addressing? If not, why not? And if so, why did he have to apologise? In a moment, I'll be speaking to Jacob Rees-Mogg, but first, here's Louisa Baldini.
This was the black-tie dinner at the East India Club in May, at which Jacob Rees-Mogg spoke as guest of honour, but knowledge of which has only just come to light. It's not anything he said there that has caused offence, but his presence at the Traditional Britain group in the first place. The group has posted derogatory comments on its Facebook page about the recently appointed peer Doreen Lawrence. They say it's a monstrous disgrace that this Lawrence woman, who's no friend of Great Britain and who is totally without merit, should be recognised like this or in any other way. In fact, she, along with millions of others, should be requested to return to their natural homelands. Jacob Rees-Mogg says he's shocked by the comments and has disassociated himself from the group. He says he was unaware of their views, that Conservative Central Office hadn't been able to give him any information on them. But a very quick internet search and you can tell what the leanings of the Traditional Britain group are. Under a list of 21 standpoints, as they call them, you have things like, we believe that our country is best served by our Indigenous customs and traditions, and then we are opposed to internationalism and globalisation, and we are opposed to mass immigration and multiculturalism.
Prior stories.
And the day before the event, this anti-fascism and racism campaigner warned Mr Rees-Mogg in a phone conversation not to attend.
I said, these are really nasty people, you know, on the scale of being a bit naughty to being really quite nasty. I think they're very dangerous because they hide behind the cloak of being traditional conservatives. In fact, many of them are National Socialists.
And what did he say?
This was a revelation to him. And he said, but I've given my word to attend. And it's the last minute, it's 24 hours before the speech, and I'm really disinclined to let people down.
And how we can possibly be giving £1 billion a month when we're in this sort of debt to bongo land is completely beyond.
Today's revelations come after UKIP's Godfrey Bloom was filmed making these comments.
UKIP is picking up in our polling more votes from from ex-Conservatives than from any other party. So if you're a Conservative MP, you will want to speak to those groups on the right of politics in order to, perhaps reaffirm your credentials as true blue, in whatever sense that might mean to traditional supporters. But as I say, it's a slightly tricky wicket. But at the same time, many people in Britain would feel that MPs should be able to speak to all sorts of groups without necessarily endorsing their views.
In a statement, the Traditional Britain group says it has no links with any far-right organisations, but we believe that exiting the EU and halting immigration are crucial to the survival of the British nation. They say Jacob Rees-Mogg MP very kindly agreed to be our group's guest of honour at this year's annual dinner, and he made an excellent speech on a range of issues. Conservative sources say the group is not affiliated to the party and they won't be taking any action against Jacob Rees-Mogg, that it's up to him to justify who he goes to dinner with.
Louisa Baldini. Well, we'll be speaking to Jacob Rees-Mogg in a moment. But first, we're joined by the Vice President of the Traditional Britain Group, Gregory Lauder-Frost. Mr Lauder-Frost, first of all, are you dismayed that Jacob Rees-Mogg has seen fit to distance himself from you, and he says he's shocked by some of the things that your group espouses?
Well, I don't think that our group espouses anything that millions of other people in this country espouse. We believe in a traditional Britain. Our aims are encapsulated in our title. I I'm very sorry if Jacob Rees-Mogg has been embarrassed by being our dinner guest, but that's all he was. He didn't have to come and approve us.
Would he not be embarrassed by the Facebook comment on Doreen Lawrence that actually the contributor to your Facebook abhorred the idea of her peerage and said that she, with millions of others, should go home to her natural homelands? Do you agree with that?
Well, I do believe that she is totally without merit. I think that it's a further debasement of the House of Lords, but this has been going on for some time. As for people being asked to go home, I can only refer you to the Conservative Party's 1970 general election manifesto, when they said that they would halt immigration and that they would encourage voluntary repatriation, and we're in favour of that.
So you're in favour of voluntary repatriation. You actually agree with the Facebook comment posted on your website then?
I agree that voluntary repatriation should be encouraged and assisted by Her Majesty's government, yes.
Do you think that there should be a halt to immigration?
Yes, I think there should be a halt to immigration. That has been promised by quite a number of administrations over the last 40 years, all of whom have failed to do it.
So, Mr. Lauder-Frost, you were sitting next to Jacob Rees-Mogg. We have the photograph here. You were sitting next to Jacob Rees-Mogg at the dinner. Mm-hmm. Did you communicate your views on immigration to him during the dinner?
No, because he was there as our guest to address us, not for me to address him.
But did he seem embarrassed at the time by the tenor of the conversation?
I think he was embarrassed that the communists at Searchlight, who you've already had on interviewing, had been on to him saying that.
So he mentioned it to you.
Well, yes, he said that they had said we were very nasty people and so on, which is just comical, frankly, comical.
Can I just ask, are you a former member of the BNP?
I certainly am not.
And when you were with Jacob Rees-Mogg, did you seek to reassure him about any of your views on immigration, or were they obvious for him to read?
No, because we didn't have him there to discuss immigration. We had him there to hear what he had to say about a traditional Britain. We wanted to hear, we believe that he is a good Tory and a good traditionalist, and we wanted to hear his views on a traditional Britain.
Thank you very much indeed. Now we can speak to Jacob Rees-Mogg, who joins us from our Bristol studio. Having had the warning of the views of this group, you, Jacob Rees-Mogg, chose to go to the dinner.
I clearly made a mistake. I think the postings that we have recently seen are so deeply disgraceful and shocking that they have no place in decent political debate. Mrs. Lawrence is a wonderful and courageous woman who has contributed to British public life, and in any traditional view of conservatism, she should be lauded for what she has done.
You just heard Mr. Lauder-Frost saying that it was a kind of travesty of the peerage system to give it to her, that she was undeserving.
I simply think he is not only wrong, but that he fails to recognise the campaign she has run over an extraordinarily long time to expose impropriety in the Metropolitan Police.
Now, when the editor of Searchlight called you and warned you, and you said, that you had a commitment 24 hours' time, you presumably then went on to the Traditional Britain website and saw a list of their aims, did you?
I made some modest inquiries, and I asked, or my assistant asked Central Office if they knew of the group and had any concerns about it. I clearly didn't do enough work to look in to what they believed.
But did you expect Conservative Central Office to have more information? Did they give you any information?
I'm not trying to blame Central Office. It was my fault. I accepted the invitation. I turned up to speak. It's my fault entirely that I spoke to a group that has subsequently posted these really unpleasant views.
Now, when Ms. Lauder-Frost talks about immigration, do you agree with him that there should be no more immigration?
No, I believe that immigration should be controlled. I believe in the policy that the government has, that we should manage our borders effectively, but I support a reasonable amount of immigration, which is very valuable to the country and has been over the whole history of England.
When you hear Mr. Lauder-Frost's views, does that sound like the views of a racist then?
I'm not going to make accusations of that kind. That will be for people listening to this programme to decide whether they think that or not.
Is there an issue, though, do you think, Jacob Rees-Mogg? You've already said that, you regret well, I assume you regret attending the dinner, but that actually there's a situation where MPs have to be so incredibly careful now that there may be views, he says the views are shared with millions of people in the country, you can't even have a discussion about these views.
I think there is a difference addressing a dinner and having a discussion. What I regret is that I addressed a dinner and to any degree gave an appearance of approval for what they've been saying, which would not be my intention. I think it's important to discuss political views to show where they are false, where they are wrong, which is why I do accept dozens of invitations to speak to try and put what I would call a true conservative view, not the really awful one that we've had from the website of the Traditional Britain Group or
but
its
of the
Facebook
night,
page.
I mean, this happened back in May. Presumably your memory until this rude awakening was of a good night, was it? There was no queasiness on the night, no queasiness after the dinner?
The dinner was a perfectly polite affair. And
so therefore, you know, another invitation to what seems like a normal, ordinary Conservative organisation, you would go, or do you think you would have to make further inquiries?
The burnt fool's bandaged finger goes wobbling back to the fire. I think my burnt and bandaged finger will not be going wobbling back to any fires, and I shall make much more careful investigations in future.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, thank you.
Thank you.